And it's
You
on.
want to hear it all, Gabriel. All those people that paid their way.
I'm gonna. Oh, trust me.
Does that mean it's on, right? It's blue.
It's recording right now.
Okay.
I'm done. No, I'm not nervous or anything,
you
you know.
want the
Not
blue
at
one?
all, by all means.
That was on.
Okay, I'm Gabriel and I'm a heroin addict. So, let's see here. I was born and raised here in Salem, over in the Felony Flats. Actually born in the Salem Hospital off Center Street. So, I come from a pretty good family. I have 2 sisters, 4 brothers, all graduated high school. My father was around until I was like about 5 years old, so my father wasn't really in my life after 5 years old. So that kind of gave me, my mom, in fact, actually worked graveyards, so that actually gave me the time to always be able to run the streets during the day because I knew my mom had to work at night, so she was always sleeping during the day. So that kind of, right there kind of gave me, you know, I was always on the streets, and I lived in the Felony Flats of all places on 17th and Hines, so that place wasn't a good neighborhood back then when I was 5 years old. So school-wise, I basically went to numerous schools, was always moving around all the time. Went to, when I was eventually got into high school, the only reason why I even passed my classes and anything is because I was in sports. So back then, my school was basically based around sports, so they always let me pass my classes just so I could play sports the following year. And I didn't end up graduating high school. All my other siblings ended up graduating high school. I didn't really take school really seriously back then, especially high school. I was just, I knew I could always get away with doing, just playing sports and get through high school. But I made it to like the 12th grade and ended up dropping out. So at that point, basically, in my life, I had to eventually find a job. So I was always really good at finding jobs. I was always able to, find a job and stick with it, own numerous businesses and everything during my life. And basically, when I was 23 years old, I decided to move out of the Salem-Keizer area. And at that point in my life, I believe I moved from Wilsonville to Vancouver, and then to Clackamas. I ended up falling in the Clackamas area, Happy Valley, Clackamas area, Clackamas County as it would be called. And at that point in my life, I was working like a car dealership or something up there. And like I said, I was always making good money. I could always talk my way into any job and, talk my way through anything through life. I always thought, my mouthpiece was going to get me through everything. Well, that wasn't really the case. So through my whole job career and everything, I was always, like I said, I was always a good employer. And other than having a roll of foil underneath the bathroom sink every time I had a new job, I was always a good employee. I was always good to employ. I could always talk my way into anything. So it came a time where I was unemployed, and I got injured. I can't remember how I was injured. I think it was something to do with my knee, and I was introduced to hydrocodone at the time. It was Vicodin or something I think it was the Clackamas Hospital, this Kaiser Permanente on 122nd, the sunny side or something like that. So anyways, I was introduced to hydrocodone, and I was taking this hydrocodone and everything, and as I was doing this, I would run out really fast for some reason. It was weird, so I'd always have to go to like the ER, and I would somehow use my mouthpiece, and I'd convince them that I needed some more of these hydrocodones. So eventually that ended. So at that point, I found out I could buy them on the streets, which was kind of cool at the time because, I don't have to go see a doctor anymore, and I don't have to convince them and, scam them for some kind of hydrocodone or anything, whatever they're going to give me, because at that point, they could only see me like twice in the ER before I had to stop, abusing that. So I found them on the streets. I was buying them on the streets all the time, and this ended up going on for, I don't know, let's say like from 2009 to 2012, I think it was. And 2012 came around, I went from hydrocodone, I went to Percocet, I ended up going to like oxys, and this was the time of the epidemic where oxys were finally getting pulled off the shelves at off all the stores and pharmacies and everything. You couldn't find them anywhere, so it's kind of hard to get a hold of them. But at this point, Vicodin and Percocet wasn't doing anything for me anymore, so I had to have those oxys. It's like life or death at this point. At least that's what I was thinking in my head. So, like I said, it came to a point where you couldn't find them anymore in the pharmacies. It was really hard to get. They were starting to get really expensive, like extremely expensive. I continued to see my bank account dwindling. Again, I was unemployed, so I had no source of income really coming in besides my unemployment, which was eventually going to run out. Thank God for Obama, he kept extending it at the time. So eventually it came to a point where I could not find these damn things on the street anywhere, and I was sitting in my bed in Clackamas and just wondering, like, what the hell am I going to do? I woke up one morning and I was sicker than a dog. And my roommate came in and says, you know what, I know something that can help you. And I was like, what do you mean help me? I'm sick. How are you going to help me? You know what I mean? Do some aspirin or something or what? Because I was unaware at this time that apparently you get sick if you don't have this medication, these pills. So he was saying, you're withdrawing. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean withdrawing? What the hell is that? What's that mean? He's like, don't have any oxys or opiates in your system, so you're withdrawing. So he said, so give me $20 and I'll be back. So I give him $20, not knowing what was going on or anything. He said he'll be able to help me out. He comes back like 2 hours later. I'm still dead sick in bed, dying sick in bed next to my girlfriend at the time in bed. And he comes back with this tiny little bag of stuff. And he goes downstairs, grabs some foil, and throws it on the foil. And he says, smoke this. I'm like, what the fuck? What is that? I was used to smoking pills, but this shit was black. So I put on foil, I burn it, whatever, and it made me feel better. And I was like, oh shit, what the hell? And it lasted forever, a lot longer than oxys did at the time. So, and it was not even half the price. It lasted longer, it was less than half the price, and it was easier to get. Apparently it was easier to get, is what he was telling me. So from that point on, I switched over to heroin, and I was smoking heroin on foil. This continued to go on for multiple years. And like I said, I found it cheaper, so I continued to do that. I didn't even want anything to do with pills because this black substance, heroin, apparently, was doing the job for me. It was a lot cheaper, and I didn't have to go out, really have to find it. I never even really knew about heroin until that day. I didn't even know what it even looked like besides in DARE when I was in elementary school. They brought in this wood board that had glass on it, and it showed all these different kind of drugs. I was like, I've never seen any of these things. What the hell? I honestly did not even know that heroin still existed on the streets. I thought that was something back in 1980 or something. I had no clue what this shit was until I saw it on this foil right in front of me. I'm like, holy shit, that shit exists? And apparently it was super easy to get. So I was like, okay, then we're sticking with this, I guess. So like I said, I continued to smoke it on foil and everything, and I wasn't quite, as you'd want to call it, some of us like to say, a junkie yet. But I ended up seeing, like I said, my account dwindling. I ended up, got so bad that I started selling everything in my entire house, including the appliances that weren't even mine, the house I was renting. I sold literally the appliances. I unhooked the dishwasher, I took out the oven, I took the microwave off the wall. It was real bad. It got pretty bad. So eventually, I got kicked out of that house. What are the odds of that, right? Eventually, I got kicked out of that house. And even at that point, once I got kicked out, I was homeless and everything, and I decided, I was going to try selling this shit, I finally got in this little niche of people that, apparently existed. At the time, I didn't know about that, all did heroin and everything, so I was like, shit, I could probably make some money off this shit, so let's try this shit out. So I bought whatever it was at the time, a ball or something stupid, and I didn't sell one damn bit of it. I did the whole damn bag, so that didn't work out so great. So eventually I was going one day to go score a bag, and I took my truck out, and I was with my friend, and I was trying to show off, and we were going to go pick up a bag, like I said. And when I was pulling out of my old driveway at the time, I decided to pull out all, trying to show off, like I said, and I pulled out sideways, and my whole back of my truck skid out, and then it skid back in the other lane, and I literally hit the car that was in the opposite lane. And I was high, so I was like, and I didn't have a driver's license, I didn't have insurance, so the first thing I thought to do is, take off. So I took off with 3 tires on my truck. 3 tires. I did that much damage to this guy's car that I was driving down the street with sparks with 3 tires on. So I parked the car, I call my ex-girlfriend and say, hey, call my truck in stolen. She's like, what? Call 911 and call my truck in stolen now. Say it was freaking someone, I had it started in the driveway or whatever, and someone took off with it. So I convince her to call 911. So the cops come, do a police report and everything. I'm nowhere to be around because I said I had to go do something because I was too busy to talk to the cops. And at that time, I was like, she told the whole lie to the cops and everything, and they didn't think anything of it. They're like, okay, whatever. I parked the car down the street. They ended up finding the car later on and calling me and say, hey, we found your car down the street. You want to come pick it up? I'm like, yeah, my girlfriend will be there to pick it up. So my smart ass, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want them to know I have the keys because they think I've stolen. So we're going to call a locksmith to go pick the locks to get into it. Because I locked the car before I left. I don't want them to think anything just in case they're there. So I pay this locksmith, actually I think it was AAA or something. I think I had AAA at the time. I paid AAA to go unlock my car. They get into my car and, we get it back and everything. So I cleared that, okay? Yeah. So 6 months goes by and I have these... I think I was staying at the house in Clackamas still or something. I was supposed to be kicked out, and somehow I was still hanging on by straws somehow in there because I was fighting through courts and everything after I was already kicked out. He was trying to kick me out of the place, and I was not. I was one of those people, what do you call a squatter? There you go, a squatter. So I was squatting at this house, and I had tenant rights because, I lived there. So he had to go through the whole court process and everything, and I was somehow, through my addiction, I was managing to make it to court. Me or my girlfriend at the time did. So it ended up the cops come back over one day because I guess when they came over to do that interview with her or whatever, they smelled weed in the house. So I was growing weed at the time, and they came in, she let them see the house, whatever, and saw my medical cards and everything. So they came back, I think it was 5 months later, and they had a search warrant. They broke into my house, the house at the time that I was renting, and they had a search warrant to search my house because they thought that I was growing marijuana illegally. So, needless to say, they came in, they searched my house. They didn't take anything out of the house. They didn't charge anyone. I was sitting on my couch hours while they searched through everything and took pictures of everything, but they never took anything out of my house. Actually, the only thing they took was a car that was in my garage because they said the motor was stolen. So, they did take something, but they didn't take any of the grow equipment or anything. So, after all that happens, another 6 months passes by. Nothing comes up of this. The cops come to my house, and apparently I had a secret indictment. They come to my house, and they talk to my girlfriend at the time, and ask her, tell her that, as long as she cooperates, she won't have any problems or anything. And so they talk to her, and she ends up telling them that she made a fake 911 call about my truck. So the cops bring me upstairs after that, and they talk to me and say, oh, yeah, we know you made the fake 911 call, just admit it to us right now. So I'm like, okay, yeah, well, it happened. Or she already told you, so you know all about it. She already said it. So at that point, I think they took me to jail at that point right there. They charged me with possession of marijuana, delivery of marijuana, and manufacturing of marijuana on top of a hit-and-run felony injury to a person, which for everyone, so everyone knows, hit-and-run felony injury to a person is a person-to-person Class A or Class B felony. It's one of the worst you can get. So I ended up going to court, and I ended up not going to court. I ended up, because I was a heroin addict, so I was able to dodge court for, a year or so. And like I said, at this time I was living on the streets, and I was living in and out of my car. So I didn't have a place to live anymore. I was living in and out of my car. They knew where I lived, so I couldn't stay there anymore. So I eventually just got out of that place. I ended up starting to hotel hop all the time. I was in and out of hotels all the time, using other people's IDs for the hotels because I was worried, some of the hotels up in Portland, they run your IDs and everything when you check in. So I was always hiding, dipping and dodging, hiding from the cops and everything. And finally a time came where I decided to go, J.C. Penney's or something stupid with my ex-girlfriend, and she stole some Levi's or something in her bag, and I was just with her. And since I was with her, they pulled me in the back too. And at that point, it was pretty funny though. This part is actually pretty funny, I thought. So the whole time I was in the back room with the freaking JCPenney's people, I was lying to them about everything I possibly could think of. And I'm literally my hands, he has me cuffed because I tried to fight him going out the door. And he had my cuffs so loose that I was trying to slip my hand out of my cuffs. And I'm joking around, not joking around. I was acting like I was fake crying and everything, like I was panicking and everything, while I'm trying to slip my hand out of the cuffs. It was hilarious. But I didn't end up getting my hands out of the cuffs, but the cops came. I ended up going to jail for that. They didn't charge me for that, but they found out that I had warrants for all that stuff. So I ended up going to jail. And while I was in jail, like I'm sure everyone would probably relate to this, that I was thinking about, I need to do the right thing. This is stupid shit. I don't know what I'm doing all this stupid shit. I need to figure something out. Again, I had no foundation out there, so I had nowhere to go. I didn't talk to my family. The only time I called my mom or my sister was when I needed money. Other than that, I never even called them whatsoever. They never even had my number because I was, like I said, I was homeless, living on the streets, in and out of a car. So I was always basically, I had a different phone all the time, or it was stolen from me. I never had the same phone for longer than 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month. So I was telling myself I was in jail, I wanted to do the right thing and do, which I didn't even really know at the time what the right thing was. I just knew I wanted to stop doing this, stop going in and out of jail, because who likes going in and out of jail, right? So I get back out of jail, and a couple days pass by, and I didn't go to court like I was supposed to. I didn't do anything I was supposed to. I started using heroin once again. At this point, I think my girlfriend at the time, she left me, so I had a car and ended up getting impounded. So at that point, I was literally homeless, had no car to live in. I had no money in my bank account anymore. I basically was living on the streets. So I ended up getting caught again and doing some time for those charges. And then this is when everything really hit the fan. I ended up getting off on that. Apparently, probation officers like you to check in. I was not someone who wanted to check in. For one, I was using. For two, I wasn't going to go see someone who's going to, give me a UA or take me to jail, because I thought every time I thought I was allergic to jail, because every time I went to jail, I got sick. I'm like, what the hell? I ain't trying to go to that place. I'm going to get sick. So I never wanted to go to jail. I never wanted to go see her or anything. So I was always able to somehow go on long streaks without checking with my probation officer, like years, 2-3 years sometimes. And I don't know how I was managing to do it, but like I said, I was homeless at the time, so I was always out there lying, stealing, begging, borrowing from people all the time. Like I said, I'd only call my mom up when I needed money. She'd always try to invite me to different events and anything. I'd be like, yeah, I'll show up, and never show up. I remember even one time I told my mom that I needed money for something stupid. I think I needed money to take a Greyhound back to Salem so I can come visit her. I completely lied to her just so I can get money from her, because I thought, I burnt my bridges so much. She ended up giving me the money. I didn't call her after that and never even showed up. So with that being said, like I said, I'd lost my relationship with my family, especially after that. I basically just cut ties with my mom right there because, I didn't show up. She's probably like, what the heck? So at that point, I was just out there stealing lots of stuff. And eventually, I basically had no friends really out there either, because everyone I only wanted to hang out with you if you had a bag or some money I could steal from you. Other than that, I wanted nothing to do with you. So ended up one day I was getting on the Max of all places. And when I got on the Max, I didn't have a Max ticket. And if you're from Portland, when you don't have a Max ticket, you get messed with. And not only that, if you don't have ID and no Max ticket, you're in some big trouble, because then they call the police, and the police have to check out who you are and everything. And that's what ended up happening to me. The cops came, I lied to them, because I knew I was on the run for not checking with my probation officer, so I knew I had some shit there. So I lied to them, they had to fingerprint me. I still lied to them when they're fingerprinting the machine, saying, this is your last chance. I'm like, nope, it's not, that's my name. I gave them some fake name, and it came back with my name. So at that point, they checked my name out and everything. They found out, apparently I had multiple warrants out of, Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Beaverton County, and Lincoln County. So I had 4 warrants out of different counties. And at that point, they thought they had a big fish, because, they're like, oh shit, we got a big fish here. This guy's been on the outstanding warrant list for a long time. So I go into Multnomah County, and of course they charged me with the good old special false information to a police officer. I do 10 days there, and Clackamas I did 21 days, then Beaverton County I did another 11 days, and finally I get to Newport. I didn't know, I wasn't aware of all the stuff that I had going on, but apparently when I was using, I was selling quite a bit, apparently is what they say, in Newport at one time. And I had some secret indictments out of Newport of possession of heroin, manufacturing of heroin, and delivery of heroin of substantial quantity, and apparently those aren't good charges to have. Those are really not good charges to have. As I was in jail there, I was like, oh shit, I'm in some big trouble with these ones. And again, like I said, I had that Class B or Class A felony already on my record for the hit and run, which is not good because it puts you really high on the grid when it comes down to that, because that's a person-to-person crime. If you have one person-to-person crime, that automatically bumps you up to like, I don't know, like a B or a C or a D or something like that on the grid. Either way, it's a long time in jail, in prison actually. And so I'm looking at, like, I talked to this attorney and everything. He tells me I have 25, I'm looking at 25 months max on the grid or whatever it is. He's like, these are really bad charges. These aren't looking promising for you. Look forward to going to prison. That's what he said to me. So this was last year. Back in, I think it was, let's see, March, April, May. I think it was like July of last year, June or July last year. And so, okay, I'm looking at all this stuff and everything. I find out there's all kinds of discrepancies and everything in this paperwork and everything. And he comes back like a week later and says, okay, they gave me a plea bargain of possession of heroin or something like that. Just possession of heroin. I'm like, okay, that's nothing then. You know, I was thinking possession of heroin, that's like 30, 60 days. He says 15 months because it's a substantial quantity. I'm like, oh shit, 15 months? He's like, either you could just take this 15 months or you can go ahead and we can go and try to fight this. And I was like, 15 months or 25 months? I was like, I'll consider, you know, I'd rather take the 25 months if you can fight this, if you think you have a way to go. He insisted that he had a way to go. He insisted that he knew a way where, like, I guess they did an illegal search and seizure on the hotel room at that time that I was staying at. So he ends up doing his magic. We go to court and he wins the secret indictment. I'm still in jail because they have to drop the charges, whatever they're going to do on me. And as I'm sitting in jail, as before, the last 20 other times I've been in jail, I thought to myself, do I really want to go through this shit again? And that's actually the time when I was actually introduced, one of the times I was introduced to the NA and AA meetings inside jails. And I was always going to them, and I always heard stuff about, like, having a sponsor, getting a sponsor and going to meetings and, like, you know, come check us out when you get out. And I really never, all those other times I was in jail, when I was going to those AA and NA meetings, I really just got out to go, you know, at that time I was in Clackamas, so I knew a lot of people. I'd just go there to go see my friends. I wasn't really going there to hear a message like I hear today. And so this time I wanted to take it a little bit serious because I wanted to see what it was all about. So while I was in there, I had like a week to think about everything, what I was going to do. Like I said, last couple of times I was in jail, I had no foundation when I got out. I had my family on nothing to do with me. I had no place to live, no car, no income, no nothing. So I had nothing to base myself off of to actually work off of, you know what I mean? So I had nothing to work off of at that point. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I decided to start checking out some treatment places and just see if that was like an option. Because I knew part of my probation was that I had to finish and complete treatment. I just didn't know how, because my probation officer didn't want to help me because I'd never checked in with her, and she didn't even know me by my name or nothing. I didn't even know, actually, I didn't even know it was a she at that point. I thought it was a guy. But at this point, they released me out of the Lincoln County Jail, and I was able to talk my sister into letting me stay a couple days at her house. And there was nothing for sure or anything, but she said I could stay at her house. And while I was there, I didn't actually check in with my probation officer the next day like you're supposed to 24 hours before, because I was in Newport and I had to freaking take a bus all the way back to Salem, which was lame. It took a whole day to do that. But anyways, so I had like the whole weekend to think about what I was going to do. I didn't get any treatment places when I was in Lincoln County because I didn't have enough time to. So Monday morning comes around. I think I was released on Thursday, and Monday morning comes around and it's time for me to check in with my probation officer. I take a bus up from Salem, because my sister lives in Kaiser, Salem up to Clackamas County, which I don't recommend for anyone because it takes forever. And I check in with this probation officer who I've never seen in my entire life after she just gave me 20 days in jail for going on the run for 3 years. So I check in with her, and she tells me, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, and at this time she had no clue that I was a heroin addict other than my charges I was looking at in Lincoln County. I said, well, I am a heroin addict junkie who has, never succeeded before, and I've never even checked in with you or anything, and I don't know what to do, honestly. I have no place to really live or anything. And what does she do? She basically just tells me she can't help me out. She said she there's nothing she can really think of that I do she can do for me because I live down in Salem, and everything, all her resources are up in Clackamas. I'm not going to go live back on the streets, so she says, go see these people up on the hill. So I go up on the hill and everything, and it's just like this transition center for Clackamas County Jail. And there is a lady by the name of Gina there that works for, I think she works for CODA. She works for CODA Treatment Center, and she signed me up for CODA inpatient, and I think it was DePaul while I was there. And but I was like, she said I had to check in within like 3 hours after they called me. I was like, that's going to be impossible to do. I live I'm staying at my sister's house in Salem, and there's no way for me to get up to Portland in 3 hours on the bus. It's not possible, So she said, well, I'm going to see what I can do. So she calls my probation officer up, and my probation officer basically says that, I can put him in like the work release center for a couple days, or whatever. She's like, I'm going to need a month. So she's like, well, I'll see what I can do. And I'm sitting in this room like, this is ridiculous. This is probably not going to work out. But then again, with the shit I was doing on the streets, it wasn't working out either. So I wait around for like an hour. She calls back and says, I got him a place at the work release to stay there until you can get him into treatment. So I chose to go to this work release place with no clothes or anything, not even I guess apparently you needed a blanket and all kinds of stuff while you're there. So I had to have my sister come bring all my stuff up there. 3 days go by, and she calls me on the phone and says she has a mentor coming to pick me up to take me to this treatment place. I had no clue what treatment place it was or anything, but I needed to do something different because I had no place to live, and I had no structure, no income, no nothing. So I had to, start doing something different because the shit I was doing was not working for me. So I ended up going to CODA Gresham, of all places. CODA Gresham, I learned a lot of things there at CODA. I got a whole bunch of tools, basically learned how to stay clean when I get out of there, and I learned a lot of relationship stuff. And when I was there, again, I had no foundation when I got out of that. When I was about to get out, I had no place to go afterwards. I didn't really want to stay back in the Portland atmosphere because that's where I used to use from. But you know what they say, it doesn't matter if you move out of the freaking place, you'll still find it somewhere else. But I just felt like I wanted to remove myself from that situation whatsoever because I knew a lot of people in Portland that use. So the Oxford stuff and everything all the resources they had there at the treatment place wouldn't work out for me. Eventually, I was in there for, it was like 60 days, and I called my mom, which at this point I was calling my mom like on a daily basis. And I remember after that, she told me, call your sister. She might let you stay there. Try that first before you do anything, before you just go back on the streets. So I called my sister up, and I got the nerves to be able to ask her, if I could stay there. She gave me the okay to stay there. So at that point, I got out of CODA, like 74 days into CODA. I came down here to Salem, Kaiser actually, of all places, and back to my hometown. And I was able to stay at my sister's house in Salem. And the whole time I was actually in CODA, I was going to a lot of AA and NA meetings up there. I was actually going to quite a bit of them. I went at least 5 days a week to AA and NA meetings, and actually I kept on hearing, I was the person that always sat in the far back. I didn't want anyone to call me. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to hear something, because I was still in treatment, so I felt like I didn't have to talk, but I kept on getting called on. So finally, kind of like broke my shell, and I started talking, and I kept on hearing in the rooms, like, get a sponsor, make sure they point you to the book, make sure it's, just keep coming to the meetings, and I was always welcomed, and they always were happy I was there when I was there, even though I was coming from CODA, and they knew where I was coming from because they could relate. And so while I was in CODA, I ended up getting a sponsor while I was there, which, let me tell you what, that was one of the hardest things to do. To ask another man out on a date? Shit. Jeez. And I'm not talking about that kind of date. But yeah, so I ended up getting a sponsor there, and I remember my sponsor saying too, when I first got him, he made me call him for 7 days straight. And he said, when I asked him to be my sponsor, I said, hey, can you be my sponsor? He's like, I will not confirm nor deny. Call me for 7 days. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm going to call you for 7 days. And that was, which at the time was pretty easy to do since I was in Coda and had nothing else to do. I called him for 7 days, so I got myself a sponsor. He started having me do a little bit of step work here and there and having me fill out a whole bunch of different surveys, papers he wanted me to do, asking me all kinds of questions. And I remember this one time he told me that he told me to give this program a try for 1 year. If you don't like what this program has to offer, the door's right there. I remember him telling me that. It's one thing I'll never forget he said. And it's been 15 months now, and I'm still here. So apparently, this is where I belong. And now I'm on my, third sponsor. First two, well, he was up in Portland, so that didn't work out so great since I live down here. I'm on my third sponsor now, and my sponsor I have right now is pretty good. He always answers his phone, even when he's at work. It's working out pretty good. Everything seems like it's a go there. Like, he said the same thing. He told me to call him for like 7 days. I ended up calling for 7 days, so I ended up getting in with that. So now today I actually drive my own car, not somebody else's that I don't know. I actually have my license back now, which is the first time I've had my license in like 10 years. I have I got a place to live with my sister now. I've actually enrolled myself back in school just not too long ago, actually. I just actually graduated. I got my GED since I didn't have my high school diploma. I actually got my GED not too long ago, since I dropped out of high school my 12th grade year. Basically all I have to show for all that stuff when I was using my addiction is a whole bunch of felonies. And I know today now I have a choice either if I want to go eat, if anyone's ever been in Multnomah County, you know what I'm talking about, eat double bologna mustard sandwiches, or live the lifestyle I have right now, because I'm not trying to go back to that kind of lifestyle, in and out of jail all the time, always on the run, always having to look over my shoulder, just every single day, always, having to worry about what's going to happen next, instead of, looking forward and not having to worry about that, scared to go in the DMV to get like an ID, or just scared to even see a police officer and walk in the opposite direction. That's ridiculous. So my clean date is March 9th of 2017. I have a sponsor now. I have a home group. I do service work. Do service work, volunteer for the central office, the 24-hour hotline. I give rides to people. Like I said, I have a sponsor. I recommend a sponsor that points you towards the book, because the solution is in the book. Again, I remember when I was using in my addiction that I was always the person that always wanted to blame everything on everyone else, and I was never the problem. It was always somebody else, and I remember seeing people doing this, people doing that, and I'd always say, well, I'm not as bad as him, so I'm not that bad yet. You know what I mean? It's that word yet. I kept saying yet all the time. I always caught myself saying, seeing the yet picture. My friend would always say, well, you haven't done this yet. Trust me, you'll get there. You'll get there. Eventually, you'll get there. And I'm like, yeah, right, you're full of shit. And eventually, I saw myself doing that, losing my place to live, lost my car, lost my job, lost my girlfriend, had no more money left, living on the streets underneath the bridge in Hollywood. And that's not Hollywood, California. That's Hollywood District, Portland, Oregon. Don't get that mistaken. Going in and out of jail. I even attempted to try to do a couple times. I tried to do detox. I remember one time I went to Hooper Detox, and it took so long to get me in. By the time they got me in the back, I think I lasted 3 days that time. I can't remember how many times I've been there. But either way, detox. Hooper Detox, I made my reservations already. I had a bag of dope and a tutor already sitting outside the door of Hooper. So I was going in there for what you want to call, what people on the Portland streets call a spin dry. It's where you go in there, you clean up a little bit, and so you can get your habit down. It's basically what it is. And I did that a couple times through Hooper. I even tried Providence Detox once, and I lied to them because, I don't know why I lied to them. I lied to them and told them I took oxys. And the lady looked me straight in my eyes and she could tell I was lying, but she had to put it on the paperwork that I did oxys. And when I told her that, she said, well, good news for you is since you do oxys, you're going to have to wait 48 hours till you get dosed. I'm like, what the fuck? There's no way in hell I'm going to be able to wait 48 hours to get dosed. I know I'm going to be sick tomorrow morning, but I didn't want her to know I'm a heroin addict. And I remember, too, she made me fill out some paper, which I didn't even read. I guess apparently it said something about she could talk to my probation officer. So needless to say, I didn't last 24 hours there. I had to get the hell out of there. And again, I had reservations already. Once again, they let you have your cell phones in there, of all places, in Providence at all times. So I just called my dealer. He met me right outside the door. It was ridiculous. So I tried all the treatments and everything, and the only thing that I've actually found that has actually solidly worked for me was when I was introduced to NA and AA at CODA. When I was going to the meetings, I got a sponsor. He spoke with me. He told me, basically always gave me solution-based. He always said everything that came out of his mouth was bullshit. Where the real solution is in the book. And that's from that day on, I took this program seriously, and this is basically where I'm at today. And all those things that I've accomplished and I've acquired over the past 15 months of my recovery are the only reason why I've even had a chance to be able to, I had the opportunity to get my license back, to have a car to drive that's in my name and it's actually owned by me, and my insurance and all this stuff is because of this program here. It's because the people in this room and this program, which keep me going every day, when I hear all these different stories about everyone, accomplishments they've done and everything everybody moving forward, not backwards. This is what keeps me going every single day, day by day. I'm not up to this week by week or month by month thing yet, but I can do this as long as I know if I do what I did yesterday, today, I know I'm going to stay clean. And I know basically from my personal experience, I've been out there and I've been here. I like here better. That's all I know. And if it wasn't for basically, like even with this program or anything, I know my worst day today is better than my best day when I was using. So, other than that, guys, I think that's all I got.